Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of The Great Ruler Season 2 Part 18 based on novel. So let's start. In the air, Mu Chen looked at the figures retreating in succession before quietly taking a breath of relief. Fortunately, the shock created from them killing the Spirit King was too great. If not, it might have been truly hard to force those fellows into retreating today. Mu Chen turned around and waved his palm. The two lustrous spirit crystals, approximately 1.5 meters long, floated to his front. With a flick of his finger, one of them swept towards Luo Li. Half for each of us. Luo Li smiled sweetly while nodding her small head. With a light hoist of her jade-like hand, she stored her half of the spirit crystal. This was very beneficial to her. With this spirit crystal half, she might be able to obtain quite a few benefits from the spiritual light empowerment. Let's go. We should also leave this place. The previous fight was overly intense. We've got to find a place to recuperate. Mu Chen spoke out while storing the other half of the spirit crystal. Luo Li nodded her head. Without any more hesitation, the two settled on a direction. With a move of their bodies, they shot towards the distance, and had already disappeared into the horizon within a single breath. As they left, the mountain range turned calm and peaceful once again. Only the earth was left in a disastrous state, which was the only evidence that an astonishing fight had erupted at that place. However, when Mu Chen and Luo Li had left, they did not know that the matter about them killing the Spirit King had already created some giant waves. Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy, Northern Sea Plaza. Within these last few days, the exceptionally expansive field was seemingly filled to the brim at all times. Countless students had converged there, raising their heads to look at the sky above the field. There was a gigantic screen located in the center. Within the screen were the peaks of 3 gigantic mountains faintly discernible in the clouds. At the top of the peak, one could faintly discern 3 figures quietly sitting there. An invisible pressure radiated from there, making all the people within the field feel uneasy. They knew that this was the final point of the hunt. The people there were the final protectors. And that place was the final pass of this hunt. Naturally, only on the final day for the arrival of the big fight would they be able to witness the appearance of that heaven-shockingly great battle. Before that day, they would not be able to acquire much information of what happened within the hunt. However, it would seem like there was an exception every time. The light array that usually did not have any activity suddenly rippled and undulated. This strange movement attracted the surprise of countless students, as gaze after gaze was sent shooting over to see. What happened? Could it be that the final stage arrived so quickly? Numerous doubtful whispers rang out as everyone had faces brimming with shock and amazement. Obviously, they did not know exactly what this appearance meant. In the front of the field, and the front of those seats located there, was the seat of Dean Tai Kang. On his left and right were a few Northern Spiritual Heavens Academy elders. At this time, all of them had raised their heads to look at the rippling and undulating light screen. There would be elders specially supervising the hunt from inside. In most circumstances, if not for the final pass, the light screen would only show absolutely important information that happened within. As doubtful gazes converged on the rippling light screen, it finally formed a clear image of a range of mountains. However, at this time, the mountain range was shaking. A radiant giant, approximately 300 meters high, towered over as tyrannical spiritual energy fluctuations radiated out, appearing and feeling extremely shocking. That's a Spirit King? As the giant appeared, voices of shock instantly rang out from within the field, while the faces of quite a few people had intense changes. Although the majority of the people here hadn't participated in the hunt before, they had some consideration to gain some knowledge over the past few days. Naturally, they also knew what a so-called Spirit King meant. They've actually lured a Spirit King out? It was not only them that were shocked. Even a few elders stilling in the front were astonished. However, their foreheads started to wrinkle as they muttered, "Why does this Spirit King look weaker? This is a Spirit King that was recently born." Dean Tai Kang's eyes, which were akin to the depths of the universe, congealed on the giant within the light screen and replied with a smile. Only at this moment did the elders have a flash of insight. Full of interest, they turned and looked over. Even if this was a recently born Spirit King, it might not be something that those students could handle. They started to wonder which unfortunate little brats had met with it. As the light screen condensed, two figures became increasingly clear on the mountain peak in front of the Spirit King. When everyone was able to clearly see their appearances, shocked voices instantly erupted out. That's the freshman called Mu Chen. The beautiful girl beside him should be called Luo Li, right? 15th on the heavenly rankings. The two of them actually dared to challenge a Spirit King? The two figures were recognized very quickly, and at once, the entire field was in an uproar. Everyone had a face of shock, as this had obviously exceeded their expectations by far. At the corner of the field, I Chingling, Zhu Ling and the rest of the Goddess Luo Association opened their mouths wide as they stared at the two in the light array with strange faces. Although they knew that Mu Chen would not be content in the hunt, they never thought that he would actually bring Luo Li to deal with a Spirit King. That was a tyrannical existence that was comparable to a heavenly completion stage. Under countless shocked gazes, the light screen flashed. The big battle had already erupted. As the picture flashed, the earth moved and the mountains shook, as both parties had already launched their attacks. As the pictures of the combat continuously flashed, the students in the field, whose faces were filled with astonishment, started to slowly change grave, bit by bit, with even some terrified shadows erupting out in the end. They saw the strong and powerful Spirit King unexpectedly being forced into retreating. The final picture displayed on the screen rested on the slash that Luo Li sent out. As the azure ray of light shot out, the earth moved and the mountains shook. In that instant, the gigantic Spirit King was sliced into two, rumbling as its halves fell. While the light screen was vibrating, the entire field had turned deathly silent. That Spirit King was unexpectedly, truly killed by Mu Chen's and Luo Li's combined attacks. At the seats in the front, the various elders all had astonishment and shock on their faces. Din Tai Kang's eyes congealed on the light screen and looked towards the thin figure within. A trace of astonishment flashed within his eyes before he said in a soft voice, "This girl is, unexpectedly, a member of the Luotian clan? That sword in her hand, could it be the Luotian sword? Isn't that the most valuable treasure of the Luotian clan?" "Dean, her grandfather should be the Luo Qianshan," said a white-haired old man beside Din Tai Kang. From his appearance, impressively, it was the old man that Mu Chen and Luo Li had met when they went to the Spiritual Values Hall for the first time. The granddaughter of Luo Qianshan, the astonishment within Din Tai Kang's eyes increased. Unable to resist, he laughed out and said, "That old fellow was actually willing to allow his precious granddaughter train in our Northern Heavens Spiritual Academy. However, this little Miss Talent is indeed extremely good. Being able to control the Luotian sword at such an age shows that she's not simple." Din Tai Kang's vision suddenly shifted to look towards Mu Chen's figure before saying out, "That little fellow's called Mu Chen, right? Ha ha, the incidents within the spiritual road should have been caused by him, right?" The old man beside him smiled, while nodding his head as he replied, "The aftermath caused by that incident wasn't small, okay? The Saint Spiritual Academy was determined to killing him then as a penalty, however, it was you, Dean, that didn't accept that. This is the only reason why he was only expelled." Din Tai Kang gave a faint smile before saying, "This little fellow's also a genius that is hard to come by. With additional guidance, he might not be inferior to Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong." The incident then was clearly due to Saint Spiritual Academy breaking some rules, and secretly giving that youth called Ji Xian some hidden assistance. Did they really think that they could hide it from everyone? The only ones they could blame was themselves for the result they got in the end. The white-haired old man nodded his head and said, "They'd taken a fancy for Ji Xian's talent, and wanted to rely on him to press our Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy in the 5 academies' great competition. In that way, they might be able to obtain the title of the top academy." Din Tai Kang's eyes faintly narrowed as he continued to stare at the youthful figure in the light screen. Smiling, he muttered, "Although that Ji Xian is a heaven-sent genius, this Mu Chen is also not simple." While the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy was flaring up in shock and astonishment by the pictures within the light screen, it was, similarly, not calm and peaceful within the hunting grounds. This was because the same piece of news had also circulated across the entire spiritual light world. In the northwest area, at an extremely dangerous grade gathering point, a spirit king was killed. The killers were Mu Chen and Luo Li. Enveloped by vigorous spiritual energy, this news instantly resounded across the hunting grounds, causing the faces of innumerable people to change. A spirit king was killed? The entire hunting ground shook due to this news. Inconceivable and incredulous expressions erupted on the faces of everyone as they thought, after these last few years, the spirit king was finally killed by students. Weren't these Mu Chen and Luo Li only freshmen? How were they able to accomplish this feat? Innumerable people looked at each other. If not for the vigorous voices still ringing across the whole world, they would have assumed that it was some illusionary tale they'd heard. While secretly sighing, they thought, looks like the darkest of all dark horses have already appeared within this hunt. Within the depths of the hunting grounds, on a desolated plain, a figure was strolling slowly with a long spear on his shoulder. Before him were spirit pawns hiding the skies and covering the earth. Smiling, he allowed the spirit pawn flood to engulf him. Bang! Bright and resplendent golden light rushed towards the sky and swept out akin to an incomparably overbearing giant tide. The spirit pawns that hit the sky and covered the earth, as well as a large quantity of spirit generals, were immediately turned into dust at this instant, leaving behind fluttering spiritual lights that blotted the skies. As the figure appeared once again, with a wave of his sleeve, he retrieved the spiritual lights that blotted the sky. Raising his head, his hair draped over his shoulder as a disdainful aura pervaded out, looking extremely abnormal. That was precisely Shen Sangshu. Staring at the northwest direction, he gave a smile as he thought, Mu Chen, he is indeed an extremely interesting fellow, however, will he be able to climb up to the spiritual light platform at the final pass? Similarly, at the same time, in the depths of a mountain peak, Li Xiantong stood tall, with his hands behind his back. He had also looked towards the northwest direction, however, there wasn't much fluctuations on that handsome face. Gazing at the direction for quite a while, he finally turned around, without saying even a single word. Bang! He Yao's ferocious stomp caused a giant boulder, akin to a small mountain, to turn into dust. His eyes turned dark, while the crowd behind him trembled and shut their mouths, not daring to speaking any words. He actually managed to kill a spirit king. He truly has some ability. Hu Yao coldly smiled, before turning around and walking towards the depths, before his chilling voice slowly rang out. You've indeed saved me some trouble. Since that's the case, I'll kindly accept the spiritual light at the Spirit King level that's in your hands, then. The craze brought forth by the killing of a spiritual king continued within the hunting grounds. There were some people who exclaimed in admiration, others with envy. There were even some who doubted it. However, regardless of that, everyone knew that the two freshmen, one named Mu Chen and the other named Luo Li, might become the most dazzling dark horses in this hunt. Within this hunt that did not lack any dark horses, they had obviously walked to the apex position. They had even stolen the limelight from Zhao Qingshan, whose ample fame was suppressed by them, without any room for discussion. However, while the entire hunting grounds was abuzz with the news of the killing of a spiritual king, Mu Chen and Luo Li disappeared without a trace. For almost a day, there was still no one that had seen them. This made everyone guess that the two might have suffered overly serious injuries. After all, regardless of what method they used, wanting to kill a spirit king without paying any price was obviously an impossibility. On a lone peak within a desolated area of the spiritual light world, Luo Li stood tall on the mountain summit. Her clear and limpid pupils would vigilantly search in all directions, from time to time. Only after detecting no abnormal activity did she turn around and look towards her back. There sat a youth on top of a giant boulder, whose eyes were tightly shut while his spiritual energy fluctuations were undulating and being unstable. Different from the guesses of the outside world, the reason why the two of them had not shown up for a day was not due to injuries. Although their consumption was indeed extremely large due to the fight with the Spirit King, the injuries they suffered had completely recovered after a short span of less than a day's worth of time. The reason why they were delayed in showing up was due to Mu Chen reaching a short of a breakthrough state after experiencing that big battle. After training bitterly in a lightning territory, Mu Chen's strength had increased, However, he was still unable to successfully break through to heavenly transformation stage. He could only be considered as a quasi-heavenly transformation stage. Although the difference between the two was only a single word, the disparity was pretty big. Only those that could truly step past that stage would be able to discover the marvels of the heavenly transformation stage, and would possess the strength of a genuine heavenly transformation stage. For the past few days, Mu Chen had always been lingering with the feeling of breaking through. However, after recovering from this great battle, this marvelous feeling had involuntarily arisen, causing extreme joy and happiness within Mu Chen's heart. This kind of breakthrough was a kind of enlightenment and was unrelated to how overbearing one's spiritual energy was. Mu Chen knew that just based on the degree of overbearingness of his spiritual energy, he was comparable to a heavenly transformation expert. However, if he did not break past this level, he could only be classified as having more vigorous and dense spiritual energy than a normal heavenly fusion stage. As for wanting to experience the marvels of the heavenly transformation stage, he should not even consider thinking about it. Although this was a small step, wanting to step past it was not an easy task. Mu Chen quietly sat cross-legged on top of the green boulder, allowing the spiritual energy around his body to undulate indefinitely. Contrary to that, his breathing was abnormally calm and tranquil, as if there was not a single trace of influence from his spiritual energy. Within his body, spiritual energy was churning and boiling. However, he did not give any particular care to control it. Instead, he let it automatically circulate. Within his aura, his divine soul was seated down while radiating light. Halos continuously erupt out from the surface of the divine soul, while a peculiar fluctuation was faintly discernible as it radiated out. The divine soul slowly opened its eyes, revealing eyes that were akin to the night sky, looking exceptionally deep. Slowly spreading out its hands, it looked akin to trying to hug the world. Rumble. In the outside world, a low and deep rumble resounded as gales started to erupt. The surface of the divine soul turned increasingly radiant. Its small body was starting to expand, little by little. In a short period of time, it had already made contact with the edges of the aura. Upon contact, a sluggish and astringent feeling transmitted out, causing the divine soul to have difficulty moving. The divine soul peacefully sat motionless, sinking into the fantastic feeling that resonated within the heavens and the earth. In the next moment, a force of absorption started to radiate out in the outside world. It tugged at Mu Chen's divine soul, causing it to break free from the aura bit by bit, while being increasingly unfettered. A ray of light surfaced on Mu Chen's abdomen, before passing through his body, and shot towards the spiritual energy enveloping the sky. A clear ray of light furiously shot out of Mu Chen's spiritual energy cover, rushing towards the heavens. This ray was extremely peculiar, as it did not have any spiritual energy fluctuations. However, it gave people a feeling that it was unable to be penetrated. The divine soul leaves the body, and enters the heavens and the earth. Seeing this spectacle before her, a joyous smile appeared on the corner of Luo Li's mouth. Being able to achieve this step, this meant that Mu Chen had already stepped past his current stage, and had truly promoted to the level of heavenly transformation stage. The so-called heavenly transformation stage indicated the breaking of fetters by one's divine soul, and was able to enter the heavens and earth. This made one able to conceal one's body at any time, making it hard to detect someone. Even if one suffered an attack, as long as one could assimilate one's body into the heavens and the earth, one could reduce the damage caused by the attack. This was why people of the heavenly transformation stage had far higher resistance to attacks than people of heavenly fusion stage. A large portion wasn't due to becoming more stronger and vigorous, but when receiving an attack. A heavenly transformation stage expert would be able to assimilate with the heavens and earth, dispelling part of the attack. Brilliant and clear light erupted from the spiritual energy cover around Mu Chen, before the fist-sized divine soul surfaced. Upon surfacing, it followed the clear ray of light and rushed towards the sky. When Mu Chen was still in the heavenly fusion stage, his divine soul could only leave for a short period of time. In addition, it could not leave far from his body. However, following his promotion to heavenly transformation stage, his divine soul had clearly been granted more freedom. This was the reason why the fetters binding it had become increasingly less. As the divine soul sat within that clear light pillar, it spread out its hands, akin to soaring through the world. At this time, a deeply drunk expression appeared on the little guy's face. Mu Chen's body had also blossomed with radiance. When Luo Li looked over, she was able to see him sitting there. However, if she only used her senses and relied on spiritual energy fluctuations, she would discover that the place was empty and devoid of people. Even if she was to specifically examine that area where he was at, she would not find the slightest trace of him. Obviously, Mu Chen had already stepped past this stage. In the sky, the clear light pillar gradually dissipated. Mu Chen's divine soul swept over, following the spiritual energy cover and drilled into his body, finally sitting down within his aura again. His tightly shut eyes started to slowly open at this instant. His black pupils sparkled with brilliance akin to a scorching sun before dissipating, bit by bit. Mu Chen raised his head. Unable to contain the extreme feeling of carefreeness in his heart, he faced the sky and roared. His roar was akin to thunder, rolling around in this stretch of the world as it expanded out. Standing up, he could feel that his body had become much more lithe and graceful. Although the spiritual energy within his body did not have an overly clear increase, he was able to feel that he had become much stronger. The current him had an even deeper resonance within the heavens and earth. He was able to absorb the spiritual energy from the world much more easily. In addition, the degree of resonance and fusion had far exceeded his previous degree. From quasi-heavenly transformation stage to heavenly transformation stage, Mu Chen had finally stepped across this gap. "Congratulations, you now possess the strength of a heavenly transformation stage," said Luo Li as she gently strutted over. Walking to his front, her absolutely beautiful, lovable face was brimming with a smiling expression. "I'm only at the heavenly transformation stage." "This is far from enough," replied Mu Chen with a faint smile. He had told the girl in front of him before that he would become an expert that was at the apex of the world. The current him clearly still had an extremely far distance from that step. "We should leave first and calculate the time. Perhaps this hunt should be nearing its end." "We still have to reach the deepest part," said Luo Li. Mu Chen nodded his head in approval. The true protectors were stationed in the deepest part. Although they had obtained the Spirit King's spirit crystal, if they were unable to fight their way through the final pass, not only would it be of absolutely no use, all the other students that had obtained spiritual lights from this hunt would have to return empty-handed. Mu Chen smacked his lips and hurriedly felt some pressure and stress. Although he had yet to see those three final protectors, according to his estimates, their strength might even be stronger than that spiritual king. After all, not only did they possess vigorous spiritual power, they still had rich combat experience, as well as various kinds of powerful methods. All the participating students in this hunt might feel exceedingly pressured to defeat them. Mu Chen sighed and lamented, before grabbing hold of Luo Li's small hand. The two of them swiftly shot forward. Taking out the map to identify their location, they swept towards the southeast. After approximately an hour, the two of them slowed down, before descending on a nearby hill. There was a number of figures waiting for them. They were Wang Tong, Ran and the rest. This was the place that they had previously decided to rendezvous. Upon seeing Mu Chen and Luo Li's figures, Wang Tong and the rest instantly breathed a sigh of relief as they felt a heavy burden drop off their shoulders. They had already waited there for an entire day. "You finally appeared. If you two didn't appear, we'd all assume that something happened to you too," Wang Tong said while wiping away the cold sweat on his forehead. Mu Chen smiled and replied, "Let's rest here a while and delay a bit of time. You two are now famous people within the hunting grounds. Do you know how many people were looking for you?" Wang Tong said in a low voice. "What's the matter?" asked Mu Chen with concern. "The matter of you two killing the Spirit King has already spread throughout the hunting grounds. Everyone knows that you two have the Spirit King's spirit crystal in your hands. If they are able to snatch it from your hands, they would be able to achieve perfection in their spiritual light empowerment this time." And Ran replied with a smile. "Therefore, there are, currently, quite a few people that have plans against you two. Before you two arrived, all of us assumed that something had happened to you." Mu Chen faintly wrinkled his brows, as he never imagined that there was actually such trouble waiting for them. However, he only gestured with his hands while saying, "It's all right. If there are truly blind people wanting to come, they can't blame us for being discourteous." As he said finishing those words, he flicked his finger, sending multiple purple-colored spirit crystals shooting out towards Wang Tong and the rest. These are spiritual lights of heavenly transformation stage late-phase spirit generals. There's enough for everyone, Mu Chen said with a smile. When he was in the underground world, he had obtained dozens of spiritual lights from the heavenly transformation stage late-phase spirit generals. As of now, it had benefited Wang Tong and the rest. He. Thanks very much. Wang Tong and the rest did not act polite and received them with fiery eyes. It was already extremely hard to acquire a high-grade spiritual light. Let's go. We'll head towards the deepest part of the hunting grounds, Mu Chen said while gesturing with his hands, while casually asking, "Is there any news that's more important than that?" Wang Tong thought for a moment, before grinning while replying, "Yes." It said that He Yao, who is rank 4 on the heavenly ranks, had sent a challenge towards Su Xian, who is rank 3. The fight would be at the base of the spiritual light mountain. The absolute majority of people are now currently heading over there. Upon hearing that, Mu Chen's eyes abruptly contracted. So, that fellow was unable to endure it any longer? As time continued to pass till this point, the atmosphere of the hunting grounds had already completely erupted. Countless students went hunting berserkly for gathering points, while those that had some harvest would hurriedly rush to the deepest part of the hunting grounds. Everyone was very clear that regardless of how much they did their utmost in here, if they were unable to clear the final pass, their earlier hard work would be all for naught. It was said that the final protectors were the 3 great generals of the Punishment Hall. They were the most influential people in the apex of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. At that time, Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong were perhaps similar to Mu Chen back then when they were just freshmen, staring at the back of those peak existences. The hunts in the past only had one protector, however, this year, the difficulty had increased. Facing the obstruction by the 3 great generals, even if Shen Sangsheng and Li Xiantong were to collaborate, it would still be a hard thing for them to fight their way through. This point was the worry within the hearts of many people. However, having reached such a point, there was absolutely no point in thinking and worrying at random about this. Everything had to depend on the start of that large battle before it could be reconsidered. Mu Chen and the rest proceeded to head towards the depths of the hunting grounds. On the way, they did not stop once, even if they were to pass by any gathering points. They had already harvested to their maximum limit, and normal gathering points were already not enough to spark the slightest bit of interest. Using their full speed, they had already entered the depths of the hunting grounds after a day. As they entered this region, they were able to sense the fiery atmosphere that was only present there. Whooshing sound seemed to endlessly ring across the sky as everyone headed towards the same direction at full speed. On the top of a lone peak, Mu Chen looked at the figures that blotted the skies, before narrowing his eyes while turning towards the deeper depths. A faint cold glint started to circulate within those pair of black pupils. Along the way, the news that they had gathered grew more and more. Now, he had also started to understand why He Yao wanted to take action against Su Xian. She had a gentle temperament and did not have a particular love for combat. Although she was ranked 3rd on the heavenly rankings, she did not pay special attention to it. If any possessed ample strength and wanted to take it from her, she might have even taken the initiative to hand it over. Therefore, He Yao sending out the challenge was clearly not because he was eyeing the 3rd rank on the heavenly rankings that Su Xian held. He wanted to rely on this action to force Mu Chen, who had disappeared for a day, out. The driving force for this was sufficient, as Mu Chen had destroyed the main headquarters of the Demon Gate, which caused He Yao to lose face. Added with the fact that Mu Chen had a Spirit King's spirit crystal with him now, these were already ample reasons for the former to take action. So, he did all of this to deal with me, Mu Chen said with a faint smile. That He Yao wants to challenge senior sister Su Xian at the bottom of the spiritual light mountain. I think that he did this to lure you out, Luo Li said in a soft voice, before continuing, looks like he's very worried that you'll find a place to arrange a large quantity of spiritual arrays for him to fall into. Mu Chen nodded his head in approval. This He Yao truly was discreet and was afraid of Mu Chen having plans against him while hiding this intent. Therefore, he was willing to take the initiative as an advantage instead of allowing the latter to secretly arrange spiritual arrays to deal with him. Using Su Xian as bait, he wanted to force Mu Chen out. This way, Mu Chen would not be able to arrange his spiritual arrays beforehand. That fellow truly is deceitful, Wang Tong said with a grin. They had all faintly heard of the grudges between Mu Chen and He Yao, thus were slightly worried as he asked, "Do you want us three to scout the spiritual light mountain first?" As for Su Xian, this is still in the spiritual light world. At most, she would suffer serious injuries and leave the hunt. Her life won't be threatened. Hearing that, Mu Chen shook his head. Looking at the direction of the spiritual light mountain, he replied, "There's no need. That's the end point. He Yao would wait for me there." Thus, the fight between him and me would be unavoidable. Although he knew that He Yao was always concealing and suppressing his strength, Mu Chen had, similarly, increased his strength by quite a lot since the day of the confrontation at the Demon Gate's main headquarters. If He Yao wanted to suppress him, it might not be an easy task to accomplish. "Let's go." Without saying anything more, with a wave of his palm, Mu Chen took the lead and sped onwards, with Luo Li and the rest immediately following behind. As Mu Chen and the group hurriedly rushed over, the depths of the hunting grounds were already filled with a vast crowd. Presently, there was a gigantic mountain, approximately 33,000 meters tall, whose peak rushed towards the heavens, rising straight into the clouds. Its peak was surrounded by a cloudy layer, causing people to be unable to view the scene present there. This mountain was Spiritual Light Mountain. At the peak of this mountain, the three great generals of the Punishment Hall were holding guard. At its base was an extremely spacious platform, which was now packed full with a sea of people. If one were to look across, one would be unable to see the end. Innumerable clamoring noises converged together, with even the cloudy layers in the horizon being seemingly scattered by it. As of now, within the center of the spiritual light platform was a gigantic stone platform standing erect. It was devoid of people, creating an obvious contrast compared to the surrounding sea of people. Everyone's gazes were seemingly converged on the top of the empty stone platform. On it sat two figures, a female and a male. The male had a head full of long green hair, with an alluring face. The female, wearing a white dress, had a beautiful face that appeared gentle and heart-moving. These two were influential figures at the peak of the Northern Heaven Spiritual Academy. With such a confrontation, it had naturally caused an abnormal amount of attention. "He Yao, you've already waited for a day. Are you still not going to take action?" On the platform, Su Xian spoke out while faintly wrinkling her slim eyebrows. Her eyes were filled with some chilliness as she stared at the green-haired figure in the distance. As her indifferent voice rang out, it carried a tinge of mockery. Being intelligent, she naturally understood the reason why He Yao had sought her. He Yao gave a faint smile as he replied, "Su Xian, you've protected that brat from the start to the end. As of now, when you're in trouble, he hides and doesn't dare to show himself. Looks like your eyesight isn't that good." Su Xian raised her long and beautiful pupils, the mockery in her eyes increased as she said, "He Yao, there's no need to proclaim so pompously. You're using me to force Mu Chen to appear. Aren't you just scared that he'll arrange some spiritual arrays beforehand to deal with you?" A cold glint flashed past He Yao's face as he replied indifferently, "You're looking too highly on him. When he appears, I'll naturally make you understand that the headquarters of my Demon's Gate isn't something that can be sliced apart by a waste like him. He's able to kill a spirit king. Can you?" A disdainful arc appeared on Su Xian's lips as she mocked him. Hearing her mockery, He Yao tightly clenched his fists. However, his face still remained indifferent as he replied, "That was only just a newly born spirit king. He had only managed to get lucky. That isn't something worth mentioning." The two people stared at each other on the platform, however, He Yao still had no intention to take action. This made the countless people who had cast their gazes over to feel speechless. However, they were faintly able to discern, and were also able to understand, the motive of the latter. No wonder this fellow's goal wasn't Su Xian, but Mu Chen. If it wasn't for that shocking news about the Spirit King being killed, there might be people who would not understand why He Yao placed Mu Chen as his ultimate goal. However, now they no longer had such thoughts. As of now, Mu Chen's fame within the hunting grounds might have been even more than He Yao's. This was due to him being the only person to ever kill a spirit king in the past few years. On the side of the stone platform, Su Ling'e watched the two people on the stone platform with concern. Beside her, Lin Qing and Guo Xiong were also resting their gazes on the stone platform. That fellow wants to force Mu Chen out, before snatching the spiritual king's spiritual light from him. Guo Xiong said in a low voice. What should we do? Upon hearing this, Su Ling'e instantly became slightly anxious. Previously, she had heard her elder sister say that the current He Yao was exceedingly strong, and even she wasn't his opponent. If Mu Chen was truly forced out, wouldn't that be unfortunate? We can only wait and see. Lin Qing and Guo Xiong both helplessly sighed. As of now, they did not have any other methods to deal with this situation. Su Ling'e stomped her little feet and bit her lip as she stared at He Yao on the platform. For the first time, she felt that fellow made her feel unexpectedly disgusted. While everyone's gazes were converged on the spiritual light platform, on the cloud-covered spiritual light mountain, two figures had their hands crossed behind their backs as they stood under the giant trees that shot through the clouds. Their eyes pierced through the lingering clouds toward the sea of humans at the base of the mountain. He Yao's strength has greatly increased. Su Xian isn't his opponent, said Li Xiantong indifferently as he stared at a figure on the spiritual light platform, before continuing, I don't know whether Mu Chen will appear, since He Yao seems to be aiming directly for him. Hearing this, Shen Sanxin smiled. Raising his head, he looked towards the summit of the mountain peak. Curling his lips slightly, he said, those three fellows are really strong. It seems slightly impossible for only the two of us to deal with the three of them. The three great generals. Their boss should be Senior Lin Zhen. I can deal with him, however, it would only end in a draw, said Shen Sanxin with a slightly regretful tone as he shrugged his shoulders. Upon hearing this, Li Xuantong's eyes faintly contracted before shooting a look at Shen Sanxin. This fellow can actually fight evenly with Senior Lin Zhen? He's the strongest person amongst the three great generals, and was the previous #1 on the heavenly rankings. I can also deal with one. Although a victory would be hard to say, I'll not lose, he said slowly. That means that we're short one person, said Shen Sanxin as he wrinkled his brows, before continuing, even if we were to have 3 draws, it would be considered our win. However, it's difficult to find another capable person again. This He Yao doesn't make the cut. There are still 2 people to choose from. Looking at the distance, Li Xiantong said slowly, Mu Chen and Luo Li. However, in this kind of matter, there clearly needs to be a man to stand up and handle it. Mu Chen. Shen Sanxin rubbed his chin and looked towards the stone platform at the base of the mountain, before saying, that will depend on whether or not he shows up. If he's able to defeat He Yao, the 3rd slot will be his. I think by then, no other student will oppose that. However, if he loses to He Yao, then there's no other way, and the place can only be given to He Yao to try. Li Xiantong faintly nodded his head in approval. This decision determined the interests of all the students. Therefore, even though he didn't like He Yao, if Mu Chen lost to him, the 3rd slot would be given to the former. Suddenly, he raised his head to look at the distance. Narrowing his eyes slightly, he said in a soft voice, he's here. Shen Sanxin smiled and similarly nodded his head. Shooting his vision brimming with interest at the distance, he stared at the number of streaks of light sweeping over, before muttering, next up, we'll have to see, between him and He Yao, who exactly would be the one to earn the qualifications of the 3rd slot. This video will end here.